Hi, my name is Polaris Banks. I'm the director of Reklaw. I'm also the writer. I'm one of the actors, the picture and sound editor, the colorist, sound designer, Foley artist, stunt choreographer, costume and set designer, etc., etc. I pretty much did everything I could do on this movie semi-competently to save money. In the pyramid of cheap and quality and fast, I didn't have infinite funds and I didn't want to sacrifice much quality, so I just stretched out the time part and worked for 5 years on this movie, mostly by myself. You'll see that it became kind of an Aronofsky-esque like spiral into madness that consumed my whole life, but for me, filmmaking is like a lifestyle. Some people surf every day. I pick at my movie. In the security footage there, that's my actual hair length at the time. This movie ended up costing me $200,000, which I raised all by myself doing years of back-to-back research studies, where I live at a facility for weeks at a time and they test drugs on me. Then between studies, I would get rental cars to sleep in and use them to deliver for Uber Eats during the day. I didn't get haircuts, I didn't have an apartment, I just saved as much as possible. Getting that RV was actually the first thing I did, and it was a nightmare. I had to buy it in Seattle and drive it all the way back to Austin. It was from 1983, and it broke down 3 times. I actually was stranded in Moab for an entire month, just waiting for the mechanic to get to me. The restaurant we used for this scene was actually planning on remodeling this room the month that I found it. So I had to fly the actors in, immediately just for this scene as kind of a separate B unit so that we could film there before they took everything down. And all those cubby lights were burnt out. So we had to buy like 50 headlamps from Home Depot, stick them in there, and then return them the next day. What makes this movie such an ensemble piece is that the main character seems to shift from scene to scene. So it starts off with Wiley in the RV looking at the computer screen, and then this scene is actually from Clifton's point of view looking at the pill. Then we go to Melissa watching Lot enter her home, and then, of course, Donna's POV scanning the crime scene. Then it's Bangs at the wedding photo, the misanthrope watching the bullet loading, Marshall's POV of the rifle, then Lot trying to reach the misanthrope, and then finally back to the misanthrope, looking down at Marshall and over at Donna, trying to make his decision. Every character's argument is represented in the movie, but also everyone's literal perspective, which is not something I did intentionally. I think that filmmaking should sometimes be like therapy, where you do what feels right and don't overthink everything, and then you can analyze later, what it all means and why you did it. What Tasha and Michael really nail about this scene is that if they had focused on the more sexual elements and made it at all smutty, then the audience would probably discard them and be like, I do not identify with these couple of weird perverts. I don't care if their actions catch up to them. But what both actors instinctually did in their auditions was go for the excitement and also the strange sweetness of the scene. The audio in this close-up had to be completely replaced, but Tasha was stuck in Lebanon at the time because of some issues with COVID and political unrest, so I just found her a studio in Beirut and directed the whole thing over the phone. She would hold me up to her ear on mute, do a take, and then unmute me to get notes. And it turned out surprisingly well. I did feel that this scene was most effective with nudity, but I ultimately left it up to Tasha to decide if it was appropriate, and she just texted back, "Release the tatas." SAG urges you to do something that's called a nudity rider, and that's where you make a contract that explicitly states exactly what will be depicted. Is it backside or just top half? What actions are they doing? Is it a brief thing or an extended sequence? The more you can be crystal clear, the more you can ensure that everyone on set is comfortable. The slow frame rate here is accurate to the way a lot of closed-circuit cameras look in prisons, but it also just makes the special effects like the head stomping so much easier. You can just take those still frames and marry them together in Photoshop. Oh man, the building of this set was by far my greatest descent into madness during this production. I worked on it for 6 months straight by myself, using clamps to hold the wood together while I screwed it in. Then I started to panic when I realized I'm not going to make my deadline in time, so I hired some art people to help me, but we still ended up having to keep building during filming. So between every setup, there are power tools going off. This is probably the part of the movie that confuses the most people. Donna's supposed to be taking a composite image of the room to show that she has a perfect visual memory, which is hinted at in the RV scene. And I wanted to drive that home with something like a camera shutter noise with each image capture. So my sound mixer Joe had this great idea of kind of making a clap noise when Donna blinks that would similarly echo over the POV shot. We also scooped out the mid frequencies and boosted up the highs and lows to try to depict her auditory sensitivity. You know, a lot of people watch this movie and they tell me, this really feels like it's part of a bigger story. And that's because it is. I actually wrote the feature version first, and then I took selected scenes and cobbled them together into the short as a proof of concept to try to get the feature funded someday. So, if you are a studio executive listening to this right now, please give me money. I don't want to sell my body to science anymore. This is a fun trick here with the leg. We actually filmed that shot from the other side of the room and then flipped it because I couldn't afford to mold two legs, so it had to double as both the left and the right. Hey, it's Michael Schnick. He and I have actually known each other since high school, and he had to fill in for this role with just 1 day's notice because the original guy had to drop out. But luckily, I had already flown in every close friend and family member I had to work on the crew for free. They all kept joking that it was like my destination wedding. Everybody was there, and they're all very inconvenienced. You know, a lot of people ask me, how did I get Lance Henriksen to do the movie? And it's kind of a funny story. I paid him to do it. I mean, that's just it. Actors are like heavy equipment. Anyone can rent a bulldozer if they're willing to pay for it. You should hire a casting director to make the offers for you, but the process is pretty simple. My problem was I could only afford Lance for 2 days. So the way I was able to make the movie work was by first rigidly storyboarding everything, much of it video storyboarding, using stand-ins to act out the blocking or just stuffed dummies that I made myself. Then I'd go through the shot list and organize it. You know, this shot's just Clara, this shot is Clara and me, this one's everybody minus Bill, this one's just Bill and me, and then I consolidate all those shots together on the schedule by actor. So the first 2 days of filming are just Bill and me. Then we add in Tasha on the third day, she does a little with Bill. Then Bill leaves and Tasha stays to do 3 days of shooting with Scott, Clara, and me. Then Lance shows up, and we do 2 straight days of only the camera pointing at Lance. Everyone is either feeding him lines or they're in the shot with him. And then it's 2 more days of shooting with Scott, Clara, and Tasha, only now we added Michael Schnick, and Michael Cortez has to fly all the way back just to be the dead body. Then everybody leaves, and I do all my singles alone with a skeleton crew just in case we go over schedule. So we're shooting this thing completely out of order. They're doing a close-up one day and then the wide of that same scene a week later. And there's no continuity person, so I'm keeping track of all this in my head and just kind of briefing them before each shot. You know, I just go up and say, okay, you just said this, he just said that, this is your mark, you're gonna walk to it tomorrow, all right, go. You may have noticed during that whole scheduling spiel that Lance and Bill were never in the same room at the same time, and the way we were able to accomplish that is, that's not Bill. That's Levi, our PA, wrestling with me, and this shot of Lance's back coming up is my brother Hilarion. We use stand-ins as much as possible to save on actor costs, so if you can't explicitly see the actor's face in the shot, chances are they're not there. That film ripple effect, by the way, is completely unintentional. That is an equipment malfunction. I tried a shot where I tipped the camera on its right side, and apparently that can cause the film to spool out a little bit in the magazine. Then it came through crooked all that day and just got crinkled up, which I was unaware of for a very long time. I was so broke after the shoot, I couldn't even afford to get the film developed, so it just sat in a deep freeze for a whole year. A lot of people don't know that this is what raw 35mm actually looks like. Do you see all those little white scratches and pieces of dust? Those have to be removed frame by frame, manually, one at a time, and it takes months. I mean, our movie probably had more than your average because we were shooting on exclusively short ends and recans to save money, so the film has more opportunity to gather dust because it's handled more, but even big Hollywood pictures have to schedule a period of time to clean the footage. Scott is so good in this movie. Everybody is. The whole cast just pops in their roles, and I'm just lucky to have them. You know, a lot of young filmmakers say, I don't have a lot of money, so should I rent a really expensive camera or should I put that towards an impressive lens set? And I'm like, if you don't have a lot of money, shoot it on your cell phone and get the best actor you can get. Because when it all comes down to it, when an audience is leaving a theater, they're either going to praise or complain about the script and the acting. That's it. Everything else is just a detail for you to express yourself. So never settle on casting. If you do an audition and nobody clicks with the role, keep looking. Open it up to bigger markets, contact agencies, offer more money, hunt down actors that you liked in other films. I never intended to hire a movie star to play Lot. I just couldn't find anybody in the cheaper brackets who could do the monologue justice. But I will tell you a little secret about this monologue. I am obsessed with pacing, and if I can't control it with editing alone, I'll sometimes speed up the pause between lines like this. Now, the reason people can't tell it's sped up is because I didn't do the blinks. That would have been a giveaway. I only did the dead space. I use this technique to tighten up the whole monologue and several other parts of the movie. My goal is to create something with rewatch value. All those movies that we would play over and over again as kids, like Back to the Future, have a very musical pacing and flow. You don't watch those movies because you don't know what happens. You watch them because you enjoy them, like a pop song. Oh, poor Bill. I'm about to step on his little face. We replaced the sole of that shoe with something softer, but I'm sure it still sucked for him. You know, it's funny, people often remark on this movie as a violent film. There are even some actors who turned it down because of the violence, but everything takes place off screen or is obscured in some way. When you do that, though, the audience fills in the rest in their head, and it's often more disturbing. All right, that's the commentary. If you like this film, let me know in the comments below and give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.